Right. Welcome to BAM's second ever live debate, Agents versus Appraisers. I'm your moderator, Dan O'Neill, and I am thrilled to be here and have a front row seat. If you're joining us live, make sure you like and subscribe and let us know where you're watching from, too. This is something that has seemed to have been like a never ending battle between the two groups of industry professionals. Our goal today is to educate, entertain, and have an open discussion and finally clear the air. There's a lot of people commenting. I'm going to turn the comments off so I do not get distracted. Hello, everybody. So, real estate broker and BAM co-founder Byron Lazine is going to be taking on Mark Skapinetz, an appraiser with over 22 years of experience and the creator of the 100% Real Estate Appraiser Group. During today's debate, they'll go deep on what each group brings to the transaction process. Byron, how you doing today?
Doing fantastic. This is a long time coming, and I'm looking forward to it.
Skap, how you doing? You ready?
I'm doing great. I'm ready to go whenever you guys are.
All right, perfect. So we have 7 questions lined up, and there will be a timed answer for each. If you in the audience have any questions, drop them in the chat, and we will get to them at the end when we open up for a Q&A. But before we get into that, and before we get into our opening statements, I do have to kind of set the table a bit here, share some context as to how this got started. I mean, because this feels like it's been forever. So how this got started, on episode 177 of The Real Word, host Byron Lazine and Nicole White discussed a Housing Wire article titled, "Is the Appraisal Process Colorblind?" The article outlined multiple reports of race-based appraisal bias and the June 2021 White House fact sheet, which addressed discrimination in the housing market. Byron argued that appraisals aren't always valid even when racial bias isn't occurring, because an appraisal is one person's opinion of value. Byron argued, you have one human being come into a house for 10 minutes. That is simply not enough, and this industry is ripe for massive disruption. It wasn't long before the comment section on YouTube went into overdrive. Agents were quick to share their own stories of appraisals gone wrong, and appraisers also jumped into the discussion to point out discrepancies in the article and the distorted view that agents typically have of appraisers. 2 of the most vocal of those appraisers were Mark Skap and Warren Summer. Warren even joined Byron and Nicole to present the other side of the argument on episode 178. The comment section quieted down after that until recently, Byron decided to go on the attack yet again. And on episode 236 of The Real Word, they discussed a New York Times article of another case of racial bias in the appraisal industry. This one sharing details of the same property in Maryland receiving 2 wildly different appraisals. When the black owner of the home answered the door and showed the appraiser the property, they received an appraisal of $472,000. When the owner asked for a second appraisal, they staged the home to look like it had white owners. The appraisal came back in at $750,000. Byron didn't shy down from his belief that the appraisal process, this is his words, not mine, the appraisal process is an absolute joke, largely because it leaves the value of a home up to one person's opinion. A few weeks later, on episode 244, Byron and Nicole covered a Realtor magazine article titled, "Why Appraisers Say We Have Targets on Our Back." Excuse me. This article outlines the biggest challenges appraisers face. So once again, the comment section filled up, and Skap took Byron's challenge to come here today and to debate these facts. So now that my diabolical monologue is done, while now you all have the context, let's get right into it. And if you appreciate this and what we're doing, because we are one of one doing this, make sure you like and subscribe. Opening statements. Byron, you will be up first. Let's hear your opening statement. 90 seconds.
I appreciate the time, and I appreciate Skap coming on. We've had a back and forth. I have never seen more back when YouTube had the dislike button, dislikes, than episode 177 after Skap, yourself and Warren dropped that video, that podcast into the private Facebook group that you founded and that you run. I appreciate you coming on. It's a conversation that the industry needs to have. And just like I said in debate 1, when I talked to Ricky Caruth about coaching, The more debates we can have in this stuffy industry, the better. All right. But as it stands with appraisers, I believe, Skap, you and your colleagues should be the like button. Okay. You should be the like button on YouTube, not the gavel. I don't think you should have the authority to disrupt a transaction how you do. And I don't believe appraisers should have the authority to completely stop a transaction in its tracks. Let's face it, appraisers are bought and sold by the banks. You're owned by the banks. That's not usually typically a good thing for somebody to say about an industry, right? And so this is a personal feeling of mine. The appraisal is an estimation, an opinion of value. It's one human's opinion, and it just doesn't deserve that much weight. Looking forward to debating you on this, Skap.
Yeah, I think it's awesome too that we're all able to come together and do this. I think that's what's really most important because it does educate people, it does provide entertainment, and we're putting the discussion out there. So, Skap, as you almost just dropped your entire setup, we got an opening statement from you, my friend.
No, I appreciate you having me on here, and you know what, Byron, I've listened to a lot of what you've said out there about appraisers. I do have to disagree with you with the fact that we're disruptors. And I also have to disagree with you with the fact that you keep claiming the one person's opinion. And my reasoning why is because you also go into listing appointments and have your opinion of what a price of a house should be. So to claim that we are just not correct in what we do, we are not bought and sold by the banks, okay? We do work for the lenders. They are our clients, just like your clients are the buyers and sellers, whoever you represent. You do what's in the best interest of your buyers and sellers, correct? I have to do my job very unbiasedly, neutral party, not worry about anything else, and give the lender a very good idea of what that property is worth in the current market for collateral. Okay, so I'm doing my job for them, but I'm not bought and sold by them. I may work for them and I may get paid by them or get paid by an AMC. However, my job is to remain unbiased and to actually give them what that value should be in the marketplace based upon facts and data, and pretty much the same facts and data you use out there as well, but it's facts and data to give them an idea of what that property is worth.
I'm not hearing Dan's audio.
No,
right now.
Neither am I.
That makes sense. I am back. And great point, Skap. I appreciate you guys. We've taken your criticism too. We have included the timer, and I love how both of you guys finished right on time there. So we've included the timer so that way nobody can have any long-winded responses here.
Like Ricky Caruth.
Jesus. All right, gentlemen, let's get into these questions here. As always, if you like what we're doing here, make sure you like and subscribe. Skap's setup is just falling apart here.
Yeah, no, I'm trying to find a pen because I forgot a pen to write down my little notes for Byron here. So go ahead and keep carrying on. I can hear you.
I'll let you borrow. Usually appraisers have pens in their, in their pocket.
No. We use technology now, my friend. We use technology.
Make sure you like and subscribe. We're going to get this back on track here. I mean, this is Skap. That's very loud.
This is the throwing the dog of a la RC.
Not worried about it. I got my iPhone right here.
All right, listen, if you guys are laughing, if you guys are entertained, if you're excited, make sure you like and hit the subscribe button. All right, question number 1. This is going to be, Byron, you were going to go first here. So sure. We know that there continues to be discrimination and bias in the housing industry. Where do you see these issues both on the appraisal side and the agent side, and how can we as professionals work to combat this?
Yeah, and I'm not going to be one-sided here. There's certainly discrimination that has been highlighted on all sides of the industry. You can point to the Newsweek investigation, that happened right in Long Island, Dan, in your home state, right? And that was real estate agents. So, this is an issue that goes across the board. I think if I'm going to look at the stories that keep bubbling to the top, they tend to be appraisers. Labor Bureau, 97% of appraisers are white. 77% of appraisers are male. Okay, that's a 2002 updated number. 70% of appraisers have been in the business over a decade. I think Skap would agree. Most appraisers show up as an over 50-year-old white dude. Okay. That's just the facts of the industry and the demographics. If you look at agents, yes, 75% would be white. It's typically a 56-year-old white female. 66% of the industry is female. When I look at the discrimination specifically to appraisers, the stories are all over the place. Washington Post, New York Times, they're everywhere. The Biden-Harris administration is taking discrimination on in-home appraisal. 2018 Brookings study found that homes in majority Black neighborhoods are often valued at tens of thousands of dollars less than comparable homes in similar but majority white communities. Gap between the appraised value of homes, white neighborhoods compared to homes predominantly Black, Latino, have nearly doubled between 1980 and 2015. So it's not like this is an issue that's getting better. It's an issue that's getting worse, according to the data.
Skap, I'll pass it to you. Question: we know that there continues to be discrimination and bias in the housing industry. Where do you see these issues on both the appraisal and agent side, and how can we as professionals work to combat this?
Well, first I'm going to say that you ever hear of the law of polarity? There's always two sides to every story. And guess what? Every article that's out there that's been written on discrimination and appraisals has shown just one side of it. It's an owner's side and what they believe to be happening to them. Have we seen the appraisals? No. Has anybody reviewed the appraisals? No. Has anybody actually went into context to look and see what adjustments have been made to those appraisals for differences out there? Has anybody looked into the experience of the appraiser? What their geographical competency is in that area? Do they know what they're doing? So nobody's looked into any of this, and we've never seen any of these reports out there. There's nothing on the appraisal side to show anything out there that actually validates this. The AEI Institute, Appraisal Enterprise Institute, has done a number of studies and has debunked a lot of this stuff out there. Andre Perry's Brookings study, come on, guys, he used Zillow data. We all know how Zillow ended up. We all know how their estimates are. He used tax assessor data for his study. So nothing has really been proven out there, and nobody's telling the side of the appraisers and actually reviewing these reports to get deep down into what is actually happening here. Is it incompetency or is it actual bias? If it is bias, and I will state this clearly, if it's bias on an appraisal intentionally, I want them out of my profession. I don't want them anywhere near this because that is not allowed per USPAP, ethics rules, everything. That's not what we do. We don't appraise race. We don't appraise religion, none of that stuff. So until they actually put out the actual information from the other side, how can we actually determine what is going on out there? You can believe just one side, but there's usually another side to it.
Byron, any follow-up comments?
I don't want this to turn into some type of a race debate because there's a lot that we can dig into. And I've got a lot of, like I've said in previous podcasts, of ammo on just the appraisal issue, but this question is based on race, so I'll respond to that. If you look at the New York Times report on this Baltimore area home, okay, the one that Dan referenced in the lead up, after a white appraiser gave their Baltimore area house a value of $472,000, Nathan Connolly and his wife, Shani Mott, both professors at Johns Hopkins University, conducted a whitewashing experiment, removing family photos, posters, books from their home, and asking a white friend to stand in for them at the door. The second appraiser, unaware Black family lived at home, gave the property a value of $750,000, $300,000. I don't need to see the appraisal. I don't need to look at it to know that that's absolutely insane. I think, and I'm looking at a one-off here, and so I know you're going to come back with, hey, that it's one situation. If that person, was racially motivated in that first appraisal, get them out of the industry. But it's not just the New York Times; it's the Washington Post story from January 2021, where it was off $150,000. Similar situation with the Mitchells in Denver, in Park Hill area. So there's a lot of these stories, and yeah, you're not going to hear it from the appraiser, because why would you hear it from the appraiser's side? They just got caught with their hand in the cookie jar.
But it's not so much the appraiser that I'm talking about. Why isn't HUD who's investigating these put out the reports to have expert reviews? Why aren't they taking these reports and actually putting them out there for peer review and for everybody else to see? I'm not just talking about an appraiser. I'm talking about experts out there to actually look at these reports, review them properly, see what is happening here. The example you gave with the Conleys, in that example, because I follow these very closely, by the way, as president of the AGA, I follow these. And one of the things that they said was this house was located on a corner of a busy street. The first appraiser made a minus 10% adjustment for it having an adverse effect for being located on a busy street. The second appraiser gave a minus 2% adjustment. Now, which one's correct? We don't know. I don't know. You don't know because we don't have the data in front of us. We're not experts in that area. Could there be a 2%, a 10%, a 5%? Maybe there's 0%, but we don't know until we actually analyze those reports. Just because one is lower doesn't mean that that's the bad one. Appraisers were blamed way back before the crash for inflating values.
Yes.
Now we're being blamed for undervaluing properties. So where does that end? Where's the median there of where we could come together? Which one is right? Which one's wrong? We don't know until the data is actually put out there, analyzed, and proven by experts out there to say, hey, you know what? This 2% adjustment was wrong. The 10% was more correct, or vice versa. So we don't know.
Byron, any closing thoughts there? Isn't that kind of feeding right into your argument, though, that it's one person's value of opinion, and it's subjective?
Yeah,
so
I mean,
you get one bad egg, and then it kind of, one, unfortunately, racism exists in our world and especially in our industry. So you get one bad egg, and right, like that, isn't that your argument?
Well, you mentioned 2000, the run up of 2007, 2008 collapse where appraisers, Skap, were overvaluing properties, and the appraisal industry and certainly the banks were blamed back then. Now your point, undervaluing, one person having that big of a gavel is a problem. It's a problem because whether you show up and you want to racially discriminate, like, listen, 97% of appraisers are white, 77% of them are white dudes over the age of 50. Whether you want to racially discriminate or whether you just want to come in there and you don't like the young agent who's meeting you and you want to show them who's boss, or you just don't like the house or somebody you met, or you stepped on your kid's toy that day and you're upset. Having that much power over a contract that has already been figured out without you is my beef. And it's how we got into 2008, and it's how we're getting into the situation now where one person's opinion is weighing too heavily on a transaction that was done without the appraiser.
Skap, any final thoughts here before we move on to the next question?
I mean, I'm not going to disagree with you on some of that. I am going to disagree with that. You're making speculations that, you don't, an appraiser's out there doesn't like the young age and things of that nature. I mean, come on now. That's just speculation. That's just fuel for the fire for yourself. And you know that the issue here is that appraisers, again, we don't work for a buyer or seller. You're working for your seller to get them top dollar, or you're working for a buyer to get them a better deal. That is your motivation. We don't appraise motivations. We don't appraise emotions. We don't appraise those types of things. We can only appraise facts and data that's out there to us. So yeah, while there may be a discrepancy in two appraisals, again, as I stated earlier, there could be a discrepancy in your price that you tell a seller and then three other agents that come in and interview as well. So as appraisers with the lending practice out there, and I hope I can get into this later on about the actual process, and maybe it'll help explain a little bit more of where we're going with this. But we are actually just doing this to give a market value to the actual lender for collateral so that they can make a decision on if this is going to be worth it for them or not. I'm not trying to get you top dollar. I'm not trying to make you overpay, and I'm not trying to make you underpay. I'm just trying to do my job and present the actual facts out there.
But before we move on to the next question, a couple of points, if I can, Dan.
Sure.
Number one, the prices that listing agents give to the seller in the home before listing is irrelevant. That's a marketing strategy. We can get into that, but that's a marketing strategy. It's irrelevant to what we're talking about here. And my final point is, before we leave the discrimination part of the question, there's multiple stories. What would you do to fix it? How do you get new blood into the industry?
Oh, wow. Well, that's a great question. I can go on for a lot with, but I mean, I'll just kind of give you a quick little synopsis of this, because prior to the crash, appraisers could take on trainees, no problem. Okay. It was beneficial to them to take on trainees. When the crash happened, and this is where we get into the process, appraisal management companies took over. Basically, they took over the process of managing the order for lenders. Guess what happened? When they took it over, they're going to take and charge you. Byron, you're going to borrow money from a lender and you want to get an appraisal done, right? They're going to charge you $700. And guess what that lender does? That lender is going to send it to their AMC, and that AMC is now pretty much going to bid it out to the lowest and fastest appraiser out there. So overnight in 2009, I lost half my income pretty much. I lost all of my clients. I lost everything out there in 2009 because of the AMCs. So now what you're getting is AMC's treating experienced appraisers like myself just like newbie appraisers. People who have just gotten into the profession. They may be charging less while I'm worth a lot more. So for me, with an AMC, it's not beneficial for me to take on a trainee because I can't have it be beneficial. I have to go out on every single job with them in order to train them and get them trained properly. Yeah, they put out some new things out there, with Perea and some other things to get out there. I think the question the answer to this is agents and appraisers need to work together to get some things changed out there to stop allowing lenders to make up their own rules and regulations that only a certified appraiser can inspect the house. Trainees can go inspect the house and gather that data as well. So there's a lot there for another discussion, but there's a lot more to it.
And I'd like to dig into that. The agent community has done a far better job getting new blood into the industry. The demographics of the appraisal community speaks for itself.
It's a lot easier for you to become a real estate agent than it is to become a real estate appraiser. There's more laws and regulations, more federal oversight, and more state laws to become an appraiser than there is to actually become an agent. I took my agent classes. I didn't take my test yet, but I took the classes. Okay. And I could easily go take that test right now and become an agent right away.
We're in agreement there.
But that's the thing. I think you guys have maybe done a better job, but there's a lot that goes into the appraisal profession that I think needs to be looked at from all aspects, all sides of things to get new blood in and to have us actually working more together to make this happen for a better future.
Agreed. Skap, this goes right into our next question here too. Like, what are some of the challenges? I mean, obviously you just mentioned a few of them, but what are some of the main challenges in the appraisal industry, and how do these challenges affect buyers and sellers?
Well, I think the process that after the crash, I mean, like I just discussed with AMCs, that's a huge disadvantage. The way that they actually make their money. Again, they'll bid out a job they'll charge you $700 and they'll bid it out to appraisers within the area or that cover that area. So you may not be getting the most experienced appraiser because that appraiser may bid $300 for the appraisal, where a more experienced one might bid $500. Well, you don't get that job. It could be right next door to me, and I don't get that job. So that to me kind of hurts, and that rest of that money goes to the AMC. It doesn't go back to your borrower. It goes to the AMC. So I mean, that's a challenge. I think there's a lot of misunderstanding in between both professions. I think we need to work better together as far as what you all do and what we do. I mean, I actually listened to This Week in Real Estate with the Bearded Men of Real Estate. I'm good friends with a lot of real estate agents these days. I'm on Clubhouse. I'm learning that other side of
Clubhouse
things.
is dead, Skap.
Yeah, not yet. It's not dead yet. But I'm still learning that. I'm learning your side of things, and it's opened my eyes to a lot of the challenges and a lot of the issues that you all face. And I work with a lot of real estate agents in and around the Atlanta metro area. They work with me because of my knowledge. I work with them. So I think there just needs to be more of an understanding of what each role presents and what each role can bring to the table. Appraisers aren't out there to kill your deals. Appraisers are just doing their job per FIREA, per all the laws and regulations out there. They're trying to just make sure that the value is correct for those lenders out there for their collateral. That's all we're trying to do. And yeah, you're going to have good eggs. You're going to have bad eggs. You're going to have good appraisers. You're going to have some bad appraisers. It's the same in all professions, just like yours. Good agents, bad agents. But I think there just needs to be a better understanding of the process and a better understanding of what we do to actually help each other.
Yeah. And Skap, we're going to get into that in question number 4, more so about the process. Byron, What do you see as far as challenges in the appraisal industry, and how does it affect your buyers or sellers or your team's buyers and sellers?
Well, the biggest challenge is the process takes too long. So if we are going to talk to process, it generally takes too long. If we could reduce the timeline of people being under contract on a property, there's a whole other issue that the industry needs to solve, which is the ease of moving stuff and the stress and all that stuff that goes with it. But if we can just reduce the timeline of the mortgage process, the appraisal process, the inspection process from 45 to 60 days down to 20 to 30 days. And you took a shot at Zillow. I would disagree. They got more data than anybody when it comes to real estate in this country. And they've been very outspoken on this, that you could see more transactions happen in this country if you get the time reduced. I've talked to a prominent CEO who's disrupting the real estate industry the mortgage industry right now. The biggest complaint when he started the company he got from the real estate industry is the appraisal process, the length in which it takes, the cost of the appraisal, the whole combination there. The other issue, the other challenge we have for buyers and sellers is how we're valuing these properties is looking in the rear view mirror, and it's not taking account for current market, which nobody knows better than the real estate agents, the top producers, the top 20% in every market. They don't have the feel that those agents and brokers have on what's happening day to day, hour to hour right now, because that's more powerful data than what happened 3 months ago.
Yeah, Skap, any rebuttal on that last point of?
Yeah, I got a couple rebuttals here. First off, I got to say that I don't think Zillow has the most data out there. I think Fannie Mae might have a lot more data from appraisers and actual data for markets out there than Zillow does. And look, we all know how Zillow ended up with their iBuying scheme. So if you're going to rely on Zillow, sorry, you may want to take another step backwards and rethink that. The cost of the appraisal. Look, appraisers get paid a specific fee. It's not contingent upon the sale of the house. It's not contingent upon anything. It's not contingent on a loan closing, and it's not contingent upon how much you sell that house for. The more you agents can sell a house for, the more your commission's going to be. So, of course, you want to make more money. You want to sell that for more. That doesn't happen with appraisers. We get paid a specific fee to do our job, no matter what it is, no matter how many reconsiderations of value come back, no matter how many times the lender comes back to us to ask for more things. It's one fee. And lastly, you just said the current market, nobody knows better than agents. I'm not going to disagree with you on that. I actually am going to agree with you on that. But I'm also going to add this in there. Have you ever heard of what's called a time adjustment in an appraisal? Did you ever actually see one in that appraisal where the actual appraiser said, look, I just used comps from 12 months ago because in that crazy market we were in, there weren't many sales. So I had to use a sale from 12 months ago. But guess what? I looked at the market trends, look at the market conditions, and determined, okay, over the last 12 months, the values in this area for these properties have increased by, say, 8-10% over that 12-month period of time. And I add that to that past sale to bring it to current value, to bring it up to what it's currently should be worth in the marketplace. So there are things that appraisers do to look at current value and what's currently happening here. That's what we do. We analyze the data, we look at it, and we apply it.
That's a good point. Now, Byron, we are going to be moving on. We're approaching almost a 30-minute mark. We got to go on to question number 3 here. There's plenty more to get to, and we got to get to our Q&A too. With that said, make sure
Dan is sticking it to me just like you did with Ricky Caruth.
Hey, Dan, I got to say one more thing.
Cut off too. Nope, everyone's cut off. I'm swinging my gavel, all right? I've been quiet for too long here.
Dan is a Ricky Caruth stan. We all know that from the last debate.
Sure, you give me a like and a comment, please. Thank you very much. Skap, what do you wish that agents understood about the appraisal process? What's one or two things that you wish we as agents understood?
I mean, honestly, I wish they would really understand the process. I don't think when you're taking your classes, like I said here in Georgia, I took my agent classes. They don't explain too much of it. It's a small little section. So you don't really understand what actually happens throughout the appraisal process from start to finish. You're not learning how to do regression analysis. You're not learning how to do paired sales analysis. You're not learning how to apply adjustments, how to extract adjustments. Most agents I know of, they just see a number. They look at that appraisal and they look at that number. Hell, many times I get appraisal reconsiderations of value that come back to me where the agent is sending me comps that I already used in the darn report already. So if you're not reading the report, if you don't understand it, well, then maybe you should learn how to actually understand it, read it, see what the appraiser says in there. Because as appraisers, we have to explain what we did, how we did it, and why we did it within that report. So if a good appraiser does that, you'll understand why they made that adjustment, how they came up with it, why they applied it in there. Instead of just looking at the number and going, oh my God, they're $20,000 less than my contract price. Well, there may be a reason, but you're not looking at it. So I think you need to understand the process more, understand what we're doing and how we're doing it. And I just think you need to understand the differences between what was prior to the crash and what's happening now with AMCs and how they choose appraisers, how they pick them. You all agents can go out there and solicit yourselves out there to anybody to get a listing. Appraisers can't do that with lending. Nobody can pick the appraiser except the AMC. That is all that can happen. Private work, I can sell myself. Can't do that in lending work.
Yeah, and Skap, great point. But I do have to. He brought up, arguing the price and understanding the appraisal process or the report. I've studied a ton. I've had a rebuttal on a bunch of appraisals, but like the listing agent, we don't get the report until we find out that the appraisal came in, 40 grand short, and then it's on us to find the lender, to find the appraiser, right? And we have to go through this whole long process. So I agree with that point, but as listing agents, we don't get the report.
Well, I think that's just where maybe some changes have to be made, or something has to happen. I mean, the actual lender is the actual client. It's not the buyer who pays for it. It's not the seller. It's actually the client that actually is the client of the appraiser. So, I mean, we have to submit it to the client. The client's the one that determines what we can do and how we can do with it. So, I mean, but afterwards, you still get the choice to do a reconsideration of value. Prove to the appraiser why this price is what it is and why it should be that way. I've done many where I've actually looked at it and said, you know what? I'm wrong on this. Let me fix this because you know what? I'm wrong and I missed this. Many times I go, nah, sorry, your comps are just not what they should be. So I'm going to stick with what I got.
It's fair. Byron, any comment on that?
Well, I think the book needs to be rewritten a little bit here, because the competitive environment that leads up to a contract is not accounted for at all. And appraisers generally, in my experience, and in the comments, if you're an agent, if you've had this experience before, I'd love to hear. I've seen a real lack of understanding about the competitive environment from appraisers and how that's impacting this contract price. The motivation behind the purchase on why I'm selling it from the seller standpoint at this price and why the buyer is coming up to this price, the motivation for both parties to meet at market value, which is the best valuation of any property you could ever find in the history of the market on any given day. And then what's the cost of them not doing this deal? What's the cost for the seller to now have to go back on the market? What's the cost on the buyer having to continue to rent or having to scramble and find a new house that may not be as good of a deal for them as the one that they were in, but yet somebody just squashed the deal? So I wish we could rewrite the book that appraisers are following to take all those nuances into account that nobody understands better than the real estate agents themselves.
Skap, any final thoughts?
Well, yeah, because I don't know what you think the definition of market value is, but per Fannie Mae,
I know we disagree on it,
but per Fannie Mae and what appraisers go by is, and I'll read it to you just so you understand it, is that market value is the most probable price which a property would bring in a competitive and open market under all conditions requisite to be fair sale, the buyer and seller each acting prudently, knowledgeably, and assuming the price is not affected by undue stimulus. And guess what you just said right there?
That makes me want to
but guess what you just said? You just said motivations. And guess what? That's like me being at a carnival and I'm right there with my kid and I know the toy is only worth $3, but I'm going to spend $10 to win that toy for my kid. Why? Because I'm motivated to win that even though it's only worth $3. So again, appraisers can't appraise motivations, or just because one person decides, you know what? I love this house. My wife loves the kitchens and bathrooms. I love everything about this. We're gonna pay more. We're gonna overpay. We're gonna say, hey, we're gonna come $50,000 more than anybody else out there. That's not market value, especially if you have 20 other offers that were all within a similar range and they all bailed out. Well, that's kind of telling me that that's more of what the market would be and what people would pay for, market participants, most probably, as opposed to just one single person offering more money on something.
Well, in the last couple of years, we saw multiple people offer more money for the same thing. And so there are going to be many situations where you may get into an environment right now where you only have one buyer, who's open to the open market. Not every single property needs multiple buyers like we saw the last couple of years. You may only have one buyer.
Would one buyer actually overpay if they're the only person, or would they pay the contract price or negotiate to pay less?
In your mind, overpaying might be list price. In your mind, as an appraiser, overpaying might be list price, but you've got no other data to go off of in the sense that, okay, you want to use the example of other people making multiple offers. It doesn't always have to be a multiple offer situation to come up with market value. If the property is marketed to the masses and it's available to everybody, and we have a contract between two parties who are investing in this process to move forward and close on a deal, that's market value. The definition that you gave me is to protect the banks. That's to protect the banks.
So if there's three
other run this racket that they've been running for years.
So if 3 other homes sold within the last 2 weeks at the same values or same price point, and they're all same exact house as the one that your one buyer is willing to pay $20,000 more for because that's what you listed at and that's what they want to. That's what they're saying they're going to pay for. How is that the appraiser's fault to appraise it for what the market is actually dictating out there with those other 3 similar comps out there? You're free to pay what you want for an asset with your own money, but when it comes to a lender, you're not free to use somebody else's money to just pay whatever you want.
2 weeks ago, Skap, there was 4 properties on the market. 3 sold. There's 1 left. Supply and demand drive market value far more than what happened 2 weeks ago when there was a lot of supply. Now we've got low supply. That demand has gone up, and the price is going to go up naturally on that asset.
All right, let's conclude this question. We have 2 more before we get to the Q&A. Make sure you like and subscribe here. And keep the comments coming too. We are going to be getting into a Q&A at the end of it. We have 2 more questions. That's it. So keep the questions coming. If you want Skap and Byron to answer them, make sure you put them in the comments below. All right, Byron, this is a question for you here. What do you wish appraisers understood more about the real estate transaction process?
And listen, there's going to be some appraisers that do understand, that have gone through the process themselves, that work with agents, that maybe are investors. So, I'm not categorizing all, but there are many appraisers that don't take into consideration how much time, energy, and effort has gone in to getting a deal to come together. Okay, these are big assets. These are not the stuffed animal at the carnival where somebody's going to overpay because they're in the situation, or they're at Disney, they're going to overpay for a water bottle because those are the only water bottles there. These are big assets. These are the biggest financial purchases that somebody is ever going to make. And on both sides of the transaction, there has been a lot of lead up time. There has been a lot of energy. There has been a lot of research, education, investment in terms of marketing dollars from the seller, time for the buyer. And they've now both committed, run their numbers. This is a deal that works, and we want to move forward. And that there's never an opportunity in today's world where if that appraiser comes in short, to stay with the bank and move forward and get this thing figured out. Oftentimes, you now got to get out of the deal, go find another bank. If the motivation, if the desire to do this deal is that strong, you've got to go find another bank. So I wish appraisers understood before they killed a deal how much time, energy, effort, work, money has gone into the deal before they squash it with many times no communication.
Skap, any rebuttal?
I mean, I think what you said is great because that's stuff that I've learned. I saw you actually interviewed Glenda Baker, the great Glenda Baker here from Atlanta, who only lives about maybe 15 minutes from me. I know Glenda. And I know a lot of other agents around here, Matt Lamaris and some other people out there that, being involved in a lot of these different rooms, I've learned a lot about what you guys all go through, what everybody deals with and the struggles and everything. So I know personally what y'all deal with. And it's really made me think a lot about how I do things in communication. But I think, yes, I think appraisers and agents need to communicate better. I think if communication gets better, things are going to get better. You need to go there and you need to supply these appraisers with all of your information, regardless whether they want to take it or not. Do your job. Supply them with your information and let them deal with it afterwards. At least you're doing your job then. I always request information from every agent I deal with because I want to know their thinking. I want to know what they're thinking, how they priced this, how they did it. That's what I want to know, because that's going to allow me into your mind. And even if I'm lesser, or if I come in, below contract, appraisers don't come in low or high. We just appraise the property for what it's worth. But if I do come in below that contract, at least I can go back and look at what you sent me, look at it all, take a deep breath and say, you know what? Okay, am I missing anything or am I not? And then actually justify it and put it in my report that, hey, the agent gave me all this information. Here's why I didn't use it, or here's why I did. But I think there is a lack of communication. I think a lot of appraisers out there, and trust me, there's good and bad in all profession. I think there's a lot of appraisers out there that just want to get in and out, do their job, not want to talk to anybody. There's also that misnomer out there from lenders and other things out there saying, oh, you can't talk to the agents about anything. You can't talk to appraisers. That's wrong. I talk to agents all the time about things. I just can't talk to you about my assignment results, but I will talk to you. I will get your information. I think there's a need for more communication and more collaboration between both entities out there to make this process better. And as you said earlier, and I'll get it in now, is where you were saying about getting the time down on stuff. That's not an appraisal issue most of the time. That's the lender waiting till last minute to order the appraisal, and then the AMC struggling to find somebody. And I've seen many orders come through my portals. Hey, we have a rush job. We need this back by tomorrow, when they had the order 6 weeks ago and they're still looking for a cheaper appraiser to do it. So there's a lot of variables there.
Well, I'm going to cut you off, Byron, and that's a good point too, because the last question here is how appraisers and agents can work together and do what's best for the consumer. So we're kind of already answering this. So Byron, I didn't mean to cut you off there, but we might as well move on to this question because that's what we're already talking about now.
Yeah. We could go back and forth on the time issue. I want to stick to your last point there. And what you were saying is a dream scenario for a lot of agents. And the comments are probably filling up with this, right? Like, yeah, I'd love for an appraiser to communicate with me at a high level, to not make me feel like I'm the bad guy for showing up to the appraisal with information or for emailing information. I learned after a couple of years, I used to have 50 listings at a time in the first few years of my business. I would carry 50 listings personally. And I stopped going to appraisals because it was more beneficial for the deal for me not to be there, because far too many appraisers gave me the impression, gave me the tone, gave me the attitude, gave me the feeling that I didn't belong at the appraisal and that they didn't want my information. So I would do this on email. I would do it on a short phone call. I would do those types of things because I was pushed out of the appraisal process. And I saw too many instances when I was there in person that it was taken out against me as being hey, am I outspoken? For sure. Am I going to tell you how I feel? You better believe that that's going to happen. And I think naturally some of those appraisers might have been rubbed the wrong way, and it was better for the deal for me to stay out of it. And so what's best for the consumer? I'll go back to my opening statement. What's best for the consumer is for the appraiser to be the thumbs up that doesn't kill a deal, that either approves a deal or we rewrite the book where we can have a pause and we can have a little bit of input from other parties. If this deal is about to go south, they shouldn't be the gavel. And I think that would be best for the consumers, for them to approve, stamp, thumbs up these deals, which have already been decided long before they got there to real market value, in my opinion.
All the appraisers are, they see Byron pull up in the Tesla and they're like, oh God, here we go again.
Well, I had a Toyota Prius. So that was part of the problem right there.
Skap, how can agents and appraisers work together to do what's best for the consumer?
I mean, I'll be honest with you. When I first started my career, I was one of those guys. I'll be honest. I was one of those guys that's how I was taught. It was to, hey, do your job. Don't listen to anybody else. Agents don't know anything. As I grew my business, as I got more into private work, I started to meet a lot of agents that really knew their stuff, really started to understand them. I realized that it was much more beneficial for me to actually work with them and actually listen to them and deal with them. Because again, that gives me more information. It gives me more drive. It gives me more stuff to work with. And I could either rebut them or I can, at least get a sense of what's going on and why they did what they did. I think
are they still teaching that though, Skap? Like, is that still like
I
common?
mean, I honestly, I don't know. I don't know.
It's a culture thing. It's a culture thing. It's like a mechanic or a contractor going there and telling a mechanic or a contractor to do the job. It is a death wish for your quote. There's such a limited supply of those great professions out there that you're better off just like accepting the quote and not biting back.
But here's my question to you then, Byron. I mean, you just said you just gave up. Why would such a person that's so passionate and so strong as you and so informative, why would you give up? Why wouldn't you just continue the process and try to make it better and try to do other things? Look, you don't even have to, even if it's not that appraiser, why aren't you out there? You have your preferred lenders, you have your preferred inspectors, you have your preferred people. Why don't you have a preferred appraiser? Maybe he's not doing your job, but a preferred appraiser that you could actually go to and talk to about situations and talk to things and run things by them, whether they do your jobs or not. At least now, maybe you're getting a better understanding of what's going on and how to do things. Maybe that appraiser will tell you, hey, go do this. When you see that appraiser, do it this way or do it this way. But you just gave up. I mean, so
I gave up,
then that's on you.
Well, because Dan's last question. What's best for the consumer? It became evident to me that what was best for the consumer was to not show up, to not ruffle the feathers in any different way. I remember so many instances of just me getting out of my car. When you're in somebody's space and you just look at them and oh, this son of a bitch hates me right now. I haven't even opened my mouth. I haven't even said hello. And this person is disgusted to even see my face, to even see my presence. And a lot of agents feel that way. And I don't think it's in their head. There is a culture here. And there is, listen, 97%, 77% rather are white males.
What does that have to do? What does that have to do with anything?
Listen, I'm going to bring it up just for one reason. 70% have been in over a decade. There's a commonality factor, and there is and I appreciate some of the things that you've said because they do buck the trend. But there's a commonality factor, the way people of similar mindsets get together, and there is a culture that has been built that I am God. My number is the end all be all. And at the end of the day, it's just their opinion. More times than not, somebody who doesn't have much skin in the game in terms of buying and selling and working with people who are investing in real estate.
Well, I mean, now I could say kind of the same as you. I mean, I could say this. I could say that agents act the same way because there's many agents that act that same way. They just throw you your stuff and say, here's what I have. And then you do the report. They don't like it. They come back at you because they don't like it. So it goes both ways. It's not just appraisers. There's agents that do it as well. Maybe not you, but there are agents out there that just throw their stuff out there. They think they're God. They think that they know best. So it goes both ways here. And I think that's where the communication lacks. I think that's where knowing what each role does. Again, we need to stay in our lanes, but we need to know what the other lane is doing and how they do it and why they do it. I think if that way, if that's explained and that's taught the right way, then I think it kind of makes things better for everybody involved in the whole transaction process. Just giving up, just not going to inspections and blaming the appraiser because you weren't there. Well, I mean, come on. And if you think it's better for the consumer, okay, great. But why can't you still talk to them afterwards, or not around the consumer, or just get some insight on things?
I'm pleasantly surprised and really happy to hear that you agree with me that communication needs to get elevated. And it's been an issue from the agent side looking at how the relationship with appraisers has been over the years, it's been one of the largest complaints from agents for years. It's not a new thing. This is long before my time.
Oh, no, I agree with you 100%. I mean, I run this 100% group. I have over 4,000 independent appraisers vetted by me in that group. And you were throwing out statistics about appraisers and everything and white and this and that and everything, male. I got 4,000 in there, and I have about 40% of them are actually women in my group. Okay, so I run.
Might be all the women in the industry.
No, it's not. It's not even close. Okay, so I run a good thing. But yeah, the appraisal profession is aging. We need to find new ways to get more people in. But again, that doesn't stem from a me problem as an appraiser. That stems from a regulatory problem, an AMC problem, a federal problem. That's where that all stems from. It's not just a residential appraiser problem.
All right. Well, we're going to get into some audience questions here. We're approaching on the 50-minute mark. If you guys like what we're doing here, make sure you comment, subscribe to the channel. Byron, this is an audience question for you. How do you propose having more checks and balances on appraisers? You know, right now they're unchecked. So how would you propose to have more checks and balances?
On the appraisers, I mean, I'm going to agree with Skap on the AMC thing. That's a complete racket. And it's, listen, appraisers have been, devalued just on their comp because of AMCs. So that they're making far less money. So I would agree with Skap, and you get rid of AMCs and you maybe make this a competitive environment for appraisers to earn their income. I think that would increase it. You know, that'd be a check and balance. If I like open competition, it's why I believe market value is between the buyer and the seller. I like an open market. I don't want a constricted, closed, regulated, over-regulated market. So, that'd be one thing. Second thing is you've got to control the banks. When I say appraisers are bought and sold by the banks are the biggest issue, right? So you've got to have some type of oversight. 2008 happened. I was a big, I felt that it really big time in 2008, right? It was very hard for me as an investor because I lost everything during those years because the banks ultimately are holding way too much power. They've gone the other way, and I think they've screwed it up. And so the banks are an issue. I want more competition for banks. I want more competition for appraisers. I want more competition across the board. That's how you get checks and balances. All
right, Skap, this question's for you. So 10 appraisers could go to a home and you probably get 10 different appraisal values. Number one, where's the consistency in that? And number two, why can't appraisers be replaced by bots if it's solely based on data?
Okay, so I'll explain it very simple with data. Okay, this is how I explain it to other people. When you eat good foods and you eat good stuff, good things happen to your body and come out. When you eat really crappy stuff and you put it in your body, crappy stuff comes out. So basically, good data is going to give you good results. Bad data is going to give you crappy results. The data that we all use out there, we all know it. Most of that data is crappy. That's why appraisers take so long, because we're trying to decipher that data. You get many agents out there that list an MLS. They'll list the home is 5,000 square feet in MLS. And when you're pulling up your parameters, you may miss that one. You may not, because your home is actually 2,500 square feet with a 2,500 square foot basement. They're not separating things out. You go to tax assessors. Tax assessor information was never intended to be used by agents or appraisers. It was for tax purposes to have a general idea of what the value is so they could tax you on that. And they don't keep up to date with a lot of their tax data. They're not putting on actual, additions and things of that nature, finished basements, whatnot. So bad data is bad data, good data is good. I don't think AVMs and bots can replace anything that we do, because we also could smell, see, hear. We could see things and smell things and look at things that an AVM can't do. The condition of a property. I've seen AVMs. I've seen them out there where they've appraised a property for X amount of dollars. I go and look at it for a full appraisal and the whole inside is just completely demolished. So how is that fair to a consumer or fair to a buyer or fair to anybody if they're using an AVM with bad data in it? I still think the appraiser has a process. I do think that some days, or with some things out there, maybe HELOCs or high, low loan to value ratios, things of that nature. Yeah, I think AVMs could actually serve a purpose, or automated stuff can, but I don't think it can completely replace what an actual appraiser does. It's kind of like with agents. Why can't we just put pictures, send somebody out there, take pictures, throw it up on the internet, and hey, here's the price via an AVM. Go, if you want to buy it, submit your offer. Well, no, because you can't replace the negotiation factors and the human element of an actual real estate agent to negotiate for their clients. So there's a lot that goes into that. As far as the 10 different, different types of values. Look, again, as I explained earlier, appraisers can only report the data that they use, what they have. You may get appraisers that are going to put something together quick. Maybe they miss something. You're going to get appraisers that are going to put something really good, in-depth together. 10 appraisers can have 10 different opinions of value. Does it mean it's wrong? It's an opinion. It's their opinion based upon the data and the facts that they use within their report. It goes back to actually the experience, goes back to their knowledge, goes back to their geographical competency to kind of prove which one is with and which one's not, which one's better, which one's not. So there's a lot of factors that go into that.
I would add on that there are certain communities that have 3 floor plans that have 500 homes in them. I'm thinking of somewhere I'm sitting now in South Florida that are very easy to figure out a value, even if you've never been in the community, based on current supply and demand, based on the negotiated contract price, and based on a phone call between a couple of competent people. You could probably come within 1 or 2% of the actual value on really what it should be, because there's 3 or 4 floor plans, and appraisers don't take much consideration into what somebody's done for updates, which cost a lot of money, right?
Well, cost doesn't equate to value.
I know that. So I'm saying, hey, if you're not going to, give much value for somebody being competent in picking colors as opposed to somebody with, purple walls, then yeah, you don't need to go into those homes.
Well, if I'm actually going to value somebody's house based on the colors of their walls, then I should just get out of the profession right here, right now, tomorrow. Because I've never based it upon somebody's paint color. Okay,
right. So it may cost $25,000 to repaint that house, and nobody's ever going to live in a house. Maybe 1% of people with bright purple walls, but. So I'm giving you that. So why even go into the house if it's one of those communities?
Well, like I said, there are certain, I mean, if you got cookie cutter neighborhoods and you got specific floor plans, yeah, again, those things can work. But when you're dealing with other homes out there, it's just not going to work. You still need people to go out there and actually look at it, make sure the condition is good, make sure that there's actually what they're saying is in there. I mean, just think about it this way. Look at when the foreclosures come out. You could take a picture of those houses.
Off, Skap. I'm finally looking at comments. Frank, I never said color determines value. I said that we don't determine value there, Frank. So put your hearing aid in and get a grip.
I'm just saying that, when you're looking, as an appraiser, when you're going out to these houses, automation wise, even if you have the same 3 floor plans, who's to say that the pictures that were taken in 3 weeks prior are still the same exact pictures depiction of that house? You still want somebody to go out there and look at that house and look at it to make sure that it hasn't been torn apart, broken into, things of that nature. So you still have to have eyes on it, whether it's an appraiser or somebody else, fine. Okay. But I think that, automation and AVMs and some of those things can work in certain circumstances, but not really in everything that's out there.
Byron?
Well, I mean, I never said the value is determined on paint color. I looked at that one comment. This guy Frank's got his hearing aid dropped out, and he went insane in the comments. So listen, there are a lot of communities that the appraisal process is just overbearing. It's slowing down what actually needs to get done, which is just stamping market value, which has already been decided.
All right, listen, before we get into our closing statements here, obviously want to say thank you to you guys for being a part of this. Thank you to BAM for putting this together. The amount of viewers, the amount of comments, this has been absolutely insane. This is the second one that we have done. I know that we are planning on doing even more, so we would love to hear your guys' feedback. Really, really appreciate your guys' time here. This has been a long time coming. It's been pretty cool to see both of you talking this out here. And I think more than anything, the real estate community wins when we do these. So
100%. And I see a comment right now, Joseph Wettinger. I probably pronounced that wrong, but he says Byron should extend an offer to attend a Skap class appraisal 101. Skap, you know what I'd like to extend an offer for? Because listen, I agree, Dan. The industry wins when we do more debates, when we eliminate the stuffiness and everybody's personal feelings, and we go deep on some of these issues that have been bubbling for decades. The race issue, the communication issues between appraisers and agents. I think we grew here. We started to do something. I'd like to extend an offer per Joseph's comment. I'd love to have an appraisal education class or video. Let's figure out what that looks like and do it right here on BAM. Skap, if you're up to host that, we'll work together on it. I'd like to extend that offer to you.
I appreciate that. You know, I've enjoyed this. I thought this was actually really beneficial, like you said, to everybody out there. You know, I think everybody kind of picks something up from it, you know, from your side, from my side, from everything out there. I love this. And you know what? I will accept that offer. I will definitely work with you to put something together for your BAM channel, as long as you come on the Skap the Appraiser podcast or the Contributory Value podcast with me, and we do something cool and fun and not argumentative like this back and forth, but we just do something cool to showcase what you've done in your career to help put some good value out there to other people.
I'm happy to do it. And I appreciate you coming into this environment where we can get a little bit debatey. And listen, you've been articulate, you've been professional throughout this debate. I really appreciate that. I appreciate all the follow-up you've had over the different podcasts where I have spoken out about the appraisal industry. And I have definitely appreciated this conversation and hope that the industry on both sides appreciates it as well. And so thank you for taking the time to do it, Scott.
I appreciate it. Anytime you guys, you've got my information. Just get my Instagram correct. You know, go back on your Instagram. Skap the Appraiser on Instagram is defunct now. Get everybody to come to Atlanta. Follow me on Atlanta Property Appraiser. Atlanta Property Appraiser is where you should follow me on. It's got all my information there.
Property Appraiser.
Atlanta Property Appraiser. Yeah. This way I can get rid of the Skap the Appraiser one, because I haven't used that one in a long time. I started getting all these pings. I'm like, what the hell's going on here?
Are you still using that one on Clubhouse?
No, I'm just called Skap. It's just Skap on Clubhouse. It's
Atlanta Property Appraiser. Get rid of Clubhouse and make sure you're subbed up to this channel, because Skap, I'm glad you took the offer. We're going to do some really cool educational content right here to help the industry grow on the BAM channel.
I subscribed, and I really appreciate everybody having me on. It was really, really awesome job.
Thank you guys so much for coming on. Thank you everybody for watching, for listening, for commenting. Make sure you run those likes up so we know that we're doing a good job. And thank you guys again. This was awesome. The real estate community wins. It's gonna be my tagline.